Here we go to talk about finding percentages of a number. And these kinds of problems are the kinds of problems where I think if you get into a groove and you just memorize what you're doing, we might forget what we're doing down the road. So I'm going to go over not only how to do these problems, but as usual, the why behind them. Let's roll. We've got 35% of 162. We know that the word of in a problem means to multiply, and I'll go over that briefly in a little bit, just as a quick review. So 35% of 162, I like to do this first with decimals. So 35% as a decimal is 0.35. So I'm taking 0.35 of, or multiplied by 162. And that's it. I now have a problem that I can plug in for sure into a calculator. So 0.35 times 162, that is equal to 56.7, which makes sense. 35% is roughly a third or so of 162, and a third of 162, that's roughly 150-ish. Just estimating. So 150 divided by 3 is 50. So we know we're in the right ballpark. And you don't have to estimate things. You could just take this process and leave it at that. Now, why does this process work? Well, remember that 35% is the same as 35 hundredths, right? Which is the same as 0.35. The reason why we're going to multiply is if I'm taking 35 100ths of 162, I'm really saying, let's figure out how much the size of parts of 100 of 162 are. So I divide 162 into parts of 100 and I say, how big is each of those parts? And then I have 35 of those 100th parts. So it's like I'm doing 35 of those 100th parts, which would be multiplying 35 hundredths, or 0.35 times 162. So a brief review of why it works. If you're good with that, great. If not, and you're like, I need one more. Here we go. Second example, 7% of 15. To do that, I convert this into a decimal, which is 0.07. And I'm going to multiply that word of, multiplication, by 15. So 0.07 times 15. 0.07 times 15, definitely throw into your calculator, it's 1.05. So we get 1.05, which makes sense because 7% is roughly close to 10%, or 1/10 of 15. A tenth of 15 would be 1.5, so it's in the right ballpark. There you have it, y'all. Just converting from percents to decimals can help you to solve finding the percentages of numbers. In a later video, I'm going to go over an alternative method to finding percents of numbers by using proportions.